Hello, my name is Javia Almer. In this video, I want to explain about English Victorian period. History of Victorian era. This period is called the Victorian period because it coincided with the reign of Queen Victoria, 1837 until 1901. It was a long and purpose period of peace in which important social change and major economic and technological developments took place. During this period, new discoveries in industry and transportation technology were also discovered. The population of England and Scotland nearly doubled during this period, and by then London became the world's largest city before using taken by New York. This period is called the prose era because the dominant of produced literary works in this period are in the form of prose. Novels were an effective means of presenting problems and ideas at the time. Literary work is the devoted to the purpose to improving the moral of society. The development of prose. Much prose was produced during the Victorian period. In addition, prose is said to be prose which is devoted to a purpose. Novel is the most popular genre of the 19th century hence. Novels produced during the Victorian age were generally called problems novels. And because the aim is to improve the moral of society, this novel is called novel didactic. Apart from that, there are several types of novel prose. Gothic novels are a literary genre that combines horror and romantic elements, where the prominent characteristics are mystery, apocalypse, destruction, and so on. Gothic novels continue to be popular that writers from other genres were incorporated into their work. For example, Will Collins and Arthur Conan Doyle. Non-fiction prose articles that are not based on fiction or the author's imagination, but contain things in the form of factual information, reality, or based on the author's observation. This essay is expressed in thematic, chronological manner. The development of poetry. The poetry of the Victorian era is generally characterized by the decline lyrics and spontaneity found in the Romanticism era, and leads to the setting of standard in both form the content. So, that gave rise to Puritanism known as Victorianism. Social, scientific, and religious issues are the subject of poetry. All elements of expression are carefully considered in others to advance poetry writing technique. The development of drama. Drama in Victorian literature underwent little change due to a lack of appreciation from Victorian society. In the 1860s, there was little change during the long reign of the Victorian period. A dramatic revival took place at the end of the Victorian period, where the thematic foundation of the new dramatization were sexual, politics, and social life. Furthermore, the public's interest and response to the aspiration of criticism triggered the extent of drama to become more alive at the time. Novelist of Victorian era. Charles Dickens. He is the most popular and internationally recognized British novelist. Dickens started his career as a journalist and all his novels were published regularly. His first book is Sketches by Boz, which is a collection of short story and descriptive writing in the form essay. The book by Charles, Sketches by Boz in 1836 and Oliver Twist in 1838. William Makepeace Thackeray. He studied at Charterhouse and Cambridge University. After that, he worked as a comic illustrator and journalist writing satirical comedies of Yellow Plus, Correspondence, and the Fraser magazine under the pseudonym Samuel Titmarsh. In 1842, he was invited to become the staff of Punch magazine. The book by William, Vanity Fair in 1848, Asmod 1852, and Pendennis in 1850. George Eliot is the name of Mary Ann Evans, the daughter of a Tory land broker. He began his literary career translating from German religious works. In 1851, he became assistant editor of the journal Westminster Review, a very prestigious journal in London. His first book of fiction was a story composed of scans of the life of a clerical. The book by George Adam Bate in 1859, The Mill on the Flows in 1860, and Silas Marner in 1861. This is another novelist, Elizabeth Gaskell, with his masterpiece North and South, Charlotte Brown with his masterpiece The Professor, Anthony Trollope with his masterpiece Barchester Towers. Some novelists in the 20th century. Rudyard Kipling is a novelist from the early 20th century who featured an adventure novel set in the British occupation of India. Dame Edith Sitwell. She was a well-known poet in 20th century English literature. This is poetry figure of Victorian era. Alfred Lord Tennyson. Tennyson was one of most famous poets of the Victorian period and remains one of the most popular English poets. In 1829, Tennyson was awarded the Chancellor's Gold Medal at Cambridge for one of his first works, Timbuktu. One of Tennyson's lyrics is The Princess in 1847, which was written in blank verse, and alludes to a hot issue at the time, namely the emancipation of women. The Poet by Alfred, Mariana in 1830, and Ulysses in 1833. Robert Browning. He was an English poet and playwright who dramatically became one of the foremost poets of the Victorian period. His poetry is known for its irony, characterization, the humor, social commentary, historical settings, and challenging vocabulary and syntax. At his death in 1889, he was seen as a sage of philosopher poet who had contributed to Victorian social and political discourse. The Poet by Robert Pauline in 1883 and Paracelsus in 1885. This is another poetry. Elizabeth Barrett Browning with his masterpiece The Seraphim and Other Poems in 1838. Matthew Arnold with his masterpiece The Forsaken in 1849. The last, Dante Gabriel Rossetti with his masterpiece The Blessed Damozel in 1850. Figures drama of Victorian era. Thomas William Robertson is a dramatic and innovative British stage director best known for the realistic or naturalistic drama series produced in London in the 1860s that broke new ground and inspired playwrights such as W.S. Gilbert and George Bernard Shaw with his masterpiece Castle in 1930. Oscar Wilde is a playwright, poet, and novelist. The continued popularity of Oscar comedy. Comedy is full of funny stories. Her most famous work is Lady Windermere's Fan in 1892.